roads have been blocked, police are sort of everywhere. Chipping Norton, you rarely even see one police car, but we're seeing vans, we're seeing loads just dotting past, and it's all for this man who slags off our country in one breath and then wants to holiday here 6 months later. I think it's just hypocrisy.
He's on his holiday. I normally wouldn't protest against people on their holiday, but there's clearly a political angle to this. He spent the weekend with our Foreign Secretary, and so I think that means that anything goes, really. I think you have to be respectful of people, but at the same time he's here, he's carrying out political business, and it's appropriate to carry out a political protest.
Shame on you, JD Vance! Shame on you!
You shall not pass!
JD Vance is on yet another summer vacation, so there's yet another cringy scandal. JD Vance took his family to England, evidently for a family vacation, and they gave him the welcome he deserved. JD Vance met with quite a lot of protests while he was vacationing in Charlbury, Oxfordshire. One of them had to do with a restaurant booking. Evidently, the restaurant was called The Bull, and it was a high-end restaurant that the staff there evidently refused to work if the restaurant took his reservation. This was even more embarrassing for JD Vance because that very same restaurant hosted none other than Kamala Harris just a few weeks prior because she was at an event there. And it didn't stop there, the protests. He was also staying in this tiny hamlet called Dean, and the protests there included something called Dance Against Vance, and the meme, the pictures of his baby meme were plastered around town. The folks there were upset at evidently being asked to show their Facebook profiles and other social media posts to the Secret Service. Of course, Trump's team and Vance's team is trying to dispute it, but the people there have spoken out and said that this happened. You put this against the fact that JD Vance back in February spoke at the Munich conference and said that Europe was not following free speech, saying this, of course, at the same time as back home, they were already trying to deport people for being pro-Palestine on the college campuses. The idea that somehow JD Vance could speak about free speech, but he decided to say this to Europe. And then show up there and ask them for their social media profiles to evidently, basically police their speech. According to the Daily Beast, a mayor from the nearby Chipping Norton said, quote, "We've had a curtailment of our freedoms here just by his mere presence in terms of where we can walk and where we can be. And the American Secret Service knocking on people's doors and asking about their Facebook profiles." Another resident said on a local forum, her name was Alice Chanders, said, quote, "The whole charade was obscene. No respect. Good riddance," as he flew away to Scotland.
This person told the Observer, "We've had the police knocking on every door. They wanted the names of everybody living there and details of their social media. I know several people refused." Bloody right. None of your bloody business. If you want to come to the Cotswolds, you're very welcome. We hope you enjoyed Dalesford and all the super expensive fare that is on sale there. We hope you enjoyed the honey-coloured stone of all the beautiful buildings in the Cotswolds. But I'm sorry, US Secret Service, if you want to come, Britons live there. They do not have to give over their social media account details to see whether they are a supporter or an opponent of JD Vance. If you want to come to Britain, you're very welcome, but you accept Britain for what it is. And I just think this is such a glaring example of the ludicrous nature of them, this kind of very powerful country where the vice president comes and we've got to sing to their tune.
Yeah.
No way.
And look, Thames Valley Police have pushed back saying, no, this hasn't happened, this hasn't happened. You know, there are reports that this has happened. If they are true, that's pretty extraordinary, isn't it?
This was not the first time JD Vance hasn't been welcomed overseas. As we know, nobody was willing to accept him in Greenland, and so he had to show up at the Greenland American military base instead. And then we have what happened in Ohio just recently. He went there on vacation in order to kayak, and evidently the Army Engineer Corps raised the river in order for him to properly kayak. Plus, we have that Disneyland trip and that very awkward run, which JD Vance has just now explained, evidently. If you didn't know, went on the podcast of Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller. She just started a podcast and had JD Vance on it. And if you had any doubt from the fact that he could not campaign and speak with ordinary Americans during that campaign, and pretty much any other interaction you've seen of him, if you listen to this podcast, you can see how truly inept he is at having a conversation. But in this podcast, he describes that the reason why he was running so strangely had nothing to do with the fact that that's how he runs. But evidently he was trying to play a game with his son and run like a ogre. I'm not sure if you buy that, but take a listen.
And somebody was like, "Oh, he runs funny." No, the actual...
It's like the dad run.
The dad run. But my kids really like this game called Ogre, where I like chase after them, but I don't run full speed. And so I was playing Ogre, and that was what caused the great scandal of how I ran it.
The reason why a clip of JD Vance running through Disneyland in perhaps a less masculine way goes viral, and he finds the need to blame it on his children for doing so, is because JD Vance has become the definition of toxic masculinity. He's went out on stage at CPAC and said that the culture is making it that men can't actually be the kind of men that they want, that instead the culture is requiring people to be androgynous. So when he's running in a way that perhaps isn't quite masculine or any quite feminine, well, people are going to call you out on it. When he decided during the campaign that he himself could decide what it meant to be a woman, and for a woman to choose not to have kids made that person less valuable, well, then you're going to get called out. Fact is, JD Vance himself has thought that it's up to him what being a woman means, or what a man means, and what femininity means, and what masculinity means. And so when you do that run at Disneyland, you're going to get called out.
My message to young men is, I think that our culture sends a message to young men that you should suppress every masculine urge. You should try to cast aside your family. You should try to suppress what makes you a young man in the first place. And I think that my message to young men is, don't allow this broken culture to send you a message that you're a bad person because you're a man, because you like to tell a joke, because you like to have a beer with your friends, or because you're competitive. It's... Our message, the cultural message, and I think the president's and mine is the exact opposite, but our cultural message is, I think that it wants to turn everybody, into, whether male or female, into androgynous idiots who think the same, talk the same, and act the same. We actually think God made male and female for a purpose, and we want you guys to thrive as young men and as young women, and we're going to help with our public policy to make it possible to do that.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.